Good evening. Welcome to Theatre of the Pies. This is Series 1, Episode 4. I'm Stephen Hopes, your host for the evening, as the squad rotation continues. We have topics coming up tonight. A small game in Ayrshire on Friday evening that my throat's about recovered from. We get the win, but the diamond is still there. We can have a wee talk about that. Mr. McCann has another interview that's interesting with the media. We're going to have a wee look at the impact that he's had on some players. Some of the players that have came to the party. I think Tom Laurie, another man of the match performance, which I think everybody would agreed with. Larson has definitely come in, and Nicky decided he would come to the party as well. So very good. No Hibs game for us to talk about because of the European action. A wee bit of a cup draw that we might be a bit excited about as well that we'll cover. And last but not least, we'll discuss the girls and their 5-star performance today. So it was very, very good. But we'll get into all of that later on. First up as well, though, from me, I'm going to give you an apology because last week I announced that we would have guest tonight, Laura McLaughlin, on the show through no fault of hers or mine. She's not going to appear this evening. We shall cover that ladies' game just as normal. And as ever, Theatre of the Pies are very much behind everything Kilmarnock do, and indeed the ladies. So we shall press on. Martin, how did you enjoy your weekend?
Well, what a weekend indeed.
Quite a start to it.
Yeah, I know, it was brilliant. I've got to be honest. My weekend was already in a fantastic positive mood as I shared the news earlier on in the week, and the Hearts game on the 19th, which has actually been moved to an evening game live on Premier Sports. So for anyone who knows, I'm sure I bang on about it too much about me and my daughter. So happy and proud, going to the games with her. But she's been selected as one of the mascots on that match. So for me, the week was already a great start. Should I say the weekend? Going into that, the Ayrshire derby speaks for itself. We'll cover that, and then it's ended today with Charlotte actually having a football tournament, and she got a goal as well, and they won 4 out of the 6 games. So yeah, it's been for a footballing weekend and a family weekend. It's been quite a proud and exciting time. So yeah, very happy, Stephen. Thank you, and Laurie, I'll pass over to you, who believe from listening to BBC. Was quite an interesting and very good professional conversation. So I'll lead you to that, Laurie.
Yeah, thank you very much, Martin. It was brilliant. I wasn't expecting to obviously be on Sports Sound last night. Just shout out to Alan Taylor first and foremost, who unfortunately couldn't make it, but Kenny McIntyre made sure he still got a shout out after his exploits in Central Station back in May. I remember listening to that live, top class radio that was. But yeah, it was good to be on Sports Sound chatting to Kenny McIntyre, Tom English, and or Tom English, as some people call them, and Andy Halliday, who was actually quite complimentary about us. But he was asking me about the defensive frailties, which I'm sure we'll get onto. But it was good to be on the BBC, and it was a very good night on Friday night. I mean, getting to see Rugby Park like that is brilliant, and for someone like myself, probably for you as well, Martin, you can almost count on one hand how many times Rugby Park's been like that. So to see it like that is incredible, and it shows the potential of what we have as a club as well.
Yeah, you bang on the money there, and obviously you mentioned that. I think that was a sort of question that was raised about the atmosphere on your sort of interview there with as you say, Tom English and that. So it was just brilliant. It was an electric atmosphere from the off. As you mentioned about how they turned the sound off to let each other battle it out. And you know what? Like, I know there are rivals and that, but credit to them. The crowd that came, the noise throughout the whole game from both sets of fans. was absolutely terrific. And you know what? As a neutral, I've seen after the game, I've seen many neutrals congratulate what a fantastic game it was for people outside of Ayrshire, and what an advertisement it was for Scottish football. You know, live on TV on the Friday night, it was set up nicely for the rest of the weekend. And again, it just adds that question as to why there isn't an expanded league in the top tier of Scotland when you can provide a derby like that. I mean, I would rather see games like that rather than playing Celtic or Rangers, 4 times a season or 3 times a season, whatever. That for me, that was a really good advertisement for that case alone as well, and the atmosphere to go along with it was just. Yeah, it was really good, really special, and to win it in the last minute. I mean, I think I mentioned about Nicky Clescenco and that. If you want to make yourself a hero, my God, he will probably, he could do nothing for the rest of his career, and he'll still go down as. Do you remember that moment when Nicky scored that last minute winner and the crowd just went berserk? It was a brilliant moment to be in. One to remember, and yeah, just like you said, Laurie, what an atmosphere.
Yeah, picking up on all of that, I'm sure we'll get into the dying embers of the game, but it seemed for somebody like myself who's witnessed quite a few derbies with that lot, or them as a scoreboard highlighted at the end. Even with the substitutions, I noticed they said and on for them, which was a nice wee touch of class for the boy and the PA system. But yeah, I think the build up to the game all week was covered very well with Kelly Chronicle and various other different outlets that seem to be building the game up nicely. It was very encouraging to see the amount of tickets getting sold, and there are lots of teams that come that we all sit and watch, and they don't fill that bottom of that. I mean, I think a couple of hundred, maybe less on the bottom rows, but fantastic. They brought the atmosphere with them. I thought personally that they didn't make enough of when they were ahead. I think if I was in that end, I would have been making a lot more noise. The noise was brilliant, but I just thought, when they were on the ascendancy, they had a couple of cheer up Neil McCann songs, but nothing too lively. I think I would have been a bit more vocal, but yeah, I think it's fantastic. I think if we just leading into the game to start with anyway, I think probably you guys are probably similar to me. I expected a few more tweaks to the lineup. I was surprised that Dees was the only omission, because obviously. I was thinking that I might have tinkered a wee bit more with it. What's your thoughts on that, Laurie?
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you, Stephen, because I thought maybe, I don't know whether you would maybe even have seen, I know it's a bit maybe almost patriotic being from Ayrshire. You wonder whether he'd be bringing in the likes of Rooney McKenzie, or even changing the goalkeeper, or just something a bit different. But I mean, I'm not actually criticising Neil McCann for that, because I'm assuming he's put that team out on Friday almost with a threat or a kind of target on them of like, I'm giving you a chance here to see what you do. And then, without trying to dig him out, Jamie Brandon obviously comes off in the first half in a tactical move. And that was a tactical move which a lot of fans called for in the Celtic game. And then obviously his part in costing us that first goal. And then McCann reacts and brings on the hero, obviously, as it were. But I would have expected maybe a few more changes. But is that McCann trying to give him a chance, I suggested, or is that indicative of a lack of depth or quality? That's more the question, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I wasn't surprised. I think it was a given that Robbie Dees was going to come slot back in, so you knew there was going to be at least one change. I think it was all dependent on whether McCann was going to change the system, as to how many changes were going to be, and the fact that he was keeping to that sort of system that he's been keeping pretty much, I would say, as his main sort of one, that diamond. He wasn't going to change too much. I have to give him credit though for taking Brandon out of the equation. He could have left it till half time, but he didn't, and obviously we reacted to that and got the goal. So you have to give credit for Neil McCann there for reacting to that. But again, I think Neil actually, who's just come into the chat there, me and him were speaking, and he agrees with you, Laurie, that would it have been wise about? Oh, he's actually said that there, Rory McKenzie. There you go. So evening there to yourself, Neil. So yeah, he said the same thing about Rory McKenzie to myself. And Laurie, you're spot on. That bit of experience, that bit of know-how, that bit of dig in the middle. He's also popped up with some important goals in Ayrshire derbies, as we know. So in hindsight, if we'd lost, you'd be talking about that. But I mean, I think at the end of the day, you've got to trust Neil McCann's decision as well. And in the end, it came through good. But you're right, Laurie. It's a very valid point. And like I say, Neil did mention that there. Stephen, what's your thoughts about the Rory McKenzie? Would it have been ideal to start him?
Yeah, to be fair, I've got to say, and probably something we'll lead on to as well, but players that have improved under McCann, I'm still slightly miffed that, well, not really overly miffed that he hasn't changed the tactical setup, because I think he seems wedded to that almost stubbornly. But I can't quite understand why Mark O'Hara is sitting on the bench, and I think obviously as we go later into the game and he comes on, he makes a big difference.
100%,
in my opinion, and I don't really know why we don't start with him. He could really have started. He kind of put Brandon out almost. You're not playing him in a position of strength. You could have either had O'Hara back there or Ring even back there, and that position I think would have been better for us. Would have stood up to because we're getting a lot of joy down that side, and obviously the first goal, which I'm sure we'll go into, is directly from that. So I'm a wee bit baffled with the O'Hara thing. I don't buy some of the guys around about me were talking about how he might be lacking match sharpness. I don't particularly buy that, to be fair. And I think you're I think Brandon is a decent workman-like type player. I just don't think that position is playing to his strengths. So I feel a bit for him. But yeah, the McKenzie one's a decent shout. Tishbola, unfortunately for me, he didn't get into the game and faded as it was going on. So would you've almost been better with Rory in there to start with? He obviously, like Greg Kilty, knows what the fixture's all about. It wants it more. I've got to say, I didn't think actually the opening 15 minutes or so that a lot of our players actually wanted it enough. The Ayr United players were well up for the fight, and unfortunately we go behind to another early goal with more basic defending, but I just felt that there was a bit more fight in them, and they seemed to want it, just that bit more than we did. Does somebody like McKenzie balling in the middle of the park make a difference to that? O'Hara, he's been here as well in terms of knowing these games and what it's about. Kilty as well. Kilty's very good, and I think, I don't know if Laurie's position, but certainly Martin, for you and my position, you can see him being much more vocal the more the games go on. Such a difference there, and quite dynamic in that the captain.
You're right, yeah, you're right. You're right about Kilty for me. Right? You can just see how much it means to him, and I think it's a surprise by many to see how Kilty taking the captaincy. But there was, because not everyone was 100% sure about him coming back last year, and then he was absolutely brilliant, got Player of the Year, and then he's taken the captain's armband. And even when you listen to him in the media, the way he speaks, the way he comes across, he's just a great guy to have around at the club. I'm really pleased for Kilty. I really like his work rate. He's always he's always trying, even when he gives the ball up, he's chasing back. I mean, there was times in I can't remember if it was a Celtic game, and we're losing 4-1, and he's still chasing back in the corner to try and win the ball back. That for me, is a proper captain, leading by example, and trying to urge them on. So now Kilty for me, and I think this diamond is a difficult one, because I think Kilty plays best when he's in those front two areas, but I think Kilty's also probably able to play out wide a bit more if you were to maybe switch it a bit. So it's a difficult one, and obviously we'll go on to the other players. Talk about Tom Lowry. For me, what a player he's turned out to be under Neil McCann. I mean, we'll go into details on that in a moment about him, but going back to, I don't know if you want to start back to the first goal there, Stephen, that we give away. Obviously,
I was going to ask Laurie that. What was his take on my take on the first 15? Where we were first 15 in particular, I thought we were pretty poor.
Could have been 2 down.
Absolutely. That's what I was about to say, Martin. Spot on. We could have definitely been 2 down. I mean, And I've even, backed myself up there by watching the highlights put out by Premier Sports. We are very fortunate that they didn't grab another, because obviously Gary Naismith's plan was clearly hit us on the counter-attack. And I mean, there's a couple of times, obviously, where they've done it brilliantly and just cut straight through us. And I'm going to use the words of Callum Scott or Kelly Cow of the Kelly Chronicle, that, like, at times it was almost like watching a carbon copy of the Celtic game. Only difference was the team are wearing grey. But, like, at the end of the day, we were lucky on a few occasions. Yes, at times we did see equality, and we see what Neil McCann obviously preaches about, and how we do look decent at times going forward. But, like, in terms of airing the counter attack, we're actually a lot more potent than I expected. I mean, the two up front, and one of them, Taylor, the scorer of the second goal, he used to play for Talbot as well. There's a bit of Ayrshire footballing heritage there. And the boy Sturton, the Air number 7, he caused a lot of trouble, obviously, as well. And bear in mind, he has actually played at Premiership. He was at Dundee United, or he is a Dundee United player who has played under Jim Goodwin. So he's someone that they have high hopes for, and you can see why. And just really, really poor from us, the early goals. I mean, I don't know, Martin, if you've maybe got some stats on that, but from last season even, how many times have we conceded in like the first 2 minutes of games? It's getting a bit ridiculous, isn't it?
I mean, it's probably why I look 10 years older than I am, according to. So I think we know who this is. Come on. So why does he look 10 years older than me? And then why do Neil might be able to answer the question on the videos, because obviously he's the one that does the recording with his glasses. But yeah, I mean, that's why I look 10 years older. It's been watching Kilmarnock. That's why I never used to look like this. I used to have hair. Used to look fresh. I've hit 40 now, and I look like I'm 50. But yeah, going back to your question, Laurie. Falkirk away, Hibs away, Rangers away. There's been loads of games where we've conceded. I've not probably got a stat on me right at this minute, but I mean, even this season, it's we just don't seem switched on from the start. It's like as if we go out there, we've been given the instructions, and then we just don't listen. It's like kids stuff. I mean, and the thing is, it's basics. It's not even like great football. I mean, Stephen, how many times you said it last year? When we talked about this, about we're the makers of our own downfall. And again, Jamie Brand.
If you look at the first goal, that's a classic example again, isn't it? Just you're not making teams beat you. This is basic defending.
This is what I've seen.
Individual errors.
Because I actually disagree with Neil. I think it was Neil, and there's one or two others I've seen in the chat were saying about it's Robbie Dees' fault, and I'm like, nah, Brandon's given the ball away. There's still time to get that. It's a bit like the Celtic game with the first goal, ball comes in. You're leaving a guy at the back stick who's been scoring Champions League goals against the likes of Real Madrid, and you're leaving him unmarked. There was still time to deal with that. So for me, Jamie Brandon gives the ball away, and you don't want to pin it and have a go at players, but I mean it's blatantly obvious. And just on that question, do you feel that that's the end of his Kilmarnock career and he's going to be joining the likes of Scott Tiffany? Because it seems to me as though he's just not getting the rub of the green. I'm sure he's a decent player in there, but I just feel as though maybe it's just not working from under McCann.
To be fair, Martin, as I said earlier, I think he's a good squad player. I think he's a good player to have there. I don't really feel that position is his strength. Now, whether we tinker with his position, I'm not so sure. Defensive qualities ain't great, but let's face it, we had that with Thompson as well. Lovely at bombing forward, but in reality, when he goes back away, he's and when teams actually have a look at that, and a couple of guys around about me were saying all they've done is simply watch a video of us, even the opening 2 games, and they thought, well, there's where we want to attack is down that side, because that's where we're going to get the most joy. And the big boy Sturton, I mean, as Laurie says, he was a handful. I mean, he definitely is a bit of quality. And again,
Max Stroyek as well.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think confidence-wise, he's maybe. I think one of the guys in our chat mentioned it as well, Martin. I think maybe he needs a wee spell out just to kind of, I kind of alluded to that last Sunday when we were on the pod. I actually thought maybe the cup games, maybe they deal with, and sometimes as with some of the keepers that come in as a number 2, is that they get the cup games. And I thought that might have been a good idea to do that. I'm sure we're going to the 2 goals, but I'm not so sure I would blame him with the first goal, because that's just a combination of Stanger and Brandon just making a complete hash out on the one side, and all right, somebody saying that maybe Big Robbie D should do a wee bit better, but I'm not so sure. And Stryjek, I don't think you could blame for that one. Certainly the second one's probably more of a discussion, but I think
seems to have lost a bit of confidence.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah. I think that's where it is with him. He looks very, very nervous when anything's coming into his feet. Now, he's never been the best in terms of distribution the actual ball at his feet, but he seemed a lot more confident than that. I don't know what has went wrong.
And I'm not. Quickly. I don't want to read into it too much, but I noticed as well, or more truthfully, my mum noticed, but then after she pointed it out, just at the end of the game, when everyone's celebrating, the disco lights are going, for some reason, Max goes straight down the tunnel and doesn't look overly chuffed with himself. Hopefully there's nothing to that, and I hope obviously Max is alright and that nothing's went on there, but you wonder as well again, is that just a lack of confidence and he doesn't feel he's almost worthy of being out there for those celebrations? It kind of it crosses your mind. It's just a random observation.
Yeah, and you know what? He's a nice guy, and he
really is.
I mean, let's. It's a really weird start to the season for him, because last week he could have stopped it from being 10, but then he obviously gifted the goal away. He doesn't look his best, but I think part of that is down to the way McCann's asking us to play out the back when we're clearly not able to do that, and also we haven't got a strong defence in front of him. So again, I do feel as though that has a part to play in it. And David and I think Alan actually mentioned in the chat about dropping him, and I don't think it's dropping him for the fact that he's not good enough. I just think to regain a better, I don't know, just rethink things, give someone else a bit of a chance, and then I don't know, but I like Stryjek, and to be honest, I don't know. I'm not too sure about dropping him, because that might drop his confidence even lower. I'm not too sure, but I mean that let's not worry too much about that, because there was plenty to look forward to after that. Joe Hugill.
On the positive side, I was just going to say that. I mean, as the half went on, we started looking at a lot more lethal, and I thought, unfortunately, I thought Tyrese looked a bit leggy again. But the combination play, the 1-2 for the goal for Hugo was just phenomenal. I mean, he's if he starts, as you've said before, Martin, if he starts to get on a kind of run that he's capable of, we're probably going to struggle to keep a hold of him in January, because he is. I mean, he's running off the ball. I don't know if any pair of you had a look at it, Martin. You're probably better placed along with me, is to see him running when he's not got the ball. I mean, he's all energy. I mean, him and Kelty in particular, and Laurie, I think were the three for me that you just keep watching them, and you're just thinking everybody else seems very static, very slow. The build up seems they're looking for a sideway pass or a backwards pass, whereas those three in particular, they just want to bomb forward all the time. But the big man, his finish was just phenomenal. And right at the right time, just before we went at half time, you're thinking, goals and timings of goals make a huge difference in a game, but that was just phenomenal.
See Tyrese. I mean, he had a bit of a. I thought he had an alright game. I thought he put himself about a bit, and there was a time where Brandon was struggling at the right back, and he bombed all the way back and put a great tackle in, and sort of jeered the crowd up a bit when we were losing, and could have gone 2-0 down and that. So, and he did well. He picked up a nice bit of space. Did a nice 1-2 with Joe Hugill, and obviously Hugill, great finish. So Tyrese for me, it's just he looked better in the Celtic game in parts. Played a part in the goal that we scored in there. He looked okay at times against Ayr United as well. I think he's been looking a lot better than he has recently, but he's still way off where he needs to be. But if we can get a bit,
Laurie, for where your positioning is, then.
Yeah, I think I've actually got that pretty spot on. But I will say, even from where I obviously am placed, at the front of the Moffat stand, well, Tom Lowry did stand out a mile, and obviously from where I kind of look in terms of for the goal, obviously you kind of got a not bad view of like Tyrese playing that one too, because you might say he's not fully sharp. You might even, I've heard some people argue, is Tyrese playing a bit too deep. But maybe that's why McCann had him deeper for stuff like that, because obviously he sees Joe as the finisher, as not quite poacher, but he sees Joe to be the one that will finish those chances off. And I tell you what, you're spot on with what you say about Tyrese. He's getting there slowly but surely. We just need to be patient and obviously try and not get, as some people have done online, try and not get too personal about the guy. 'Cause of course, he's just come back from an injury, remember, troops. And of course, here's the thing, he's still contributing. It's not as if he's down in tools. He's maybe not quite where he was towards the end of last season before he got injured. Although, bear in mind, this was exactly how Tyrese started when he first signed for us. It was exactly like this.
Martin and I did
think
have
the
a
reason the
chat
bar is
previously
high.
about that, didn't we?
I think the bar is high with Tyrese, though,
Definitely.
because of what he achieved, and then obviously because of his injury. I think that's what the expectation is. Hugo, for me, I actually thought in the first half he wasn't poor, but he just wasn't getting the rub of the green. He wasn't getting any. He just wasn't getting into the game. I think me and Neil were talking about that. But he was always chasing, like you say, Stephen, always looking to close down, looking to work hard. But the difference between Tyrese and Joe is as soon as that ball comes to him, bang, goal. He doesn't need many chances, and that's a sign of a very good striker. I mean, that's 11 goals now in 22 games. You can't ask for better at this level for a striker. You know, Kilmarnock. That's a sort of level that if you continue that, we're going to get him big money for him. You know, strikers go for a big premium. So we've got to be looking at what, 3 million for him if he continues this run of form. We can't go rejecting like offers, and we've got to go for a big. If someone comes in, bang, we've got to look for a big offer because it's a good opportunity.
But this is where the club need a bit of credit, actually, just quickly on that, because sometimes, and I've always been one who will criticise the fact that something we don't value our assets properly and we let the players' contracts run down. Of course, Joe initially signed, I think it may have been 18 months initially when he signed in January, but in the summer we did the right thing. We said to him, here's another contract with another year add on to it, I think, and the extra dangling carrot of the number 9 shirt, just to try and obviously, presumably, fend off a bit of interest already, and that was in the summer. So even I think the club are even well aware that he is someone who will definitely have some admirers, I'd imagine, back down south.
I think that probably leads into where McCann wants to play as well. Though, Laurie, I don't think it's just he sees him as a very valuable asset, but he wants this.
Definitely.
The front man's got to deliver the goals. The other thing I was going to say as well, that the positive we've got, if Tyrese is going to take a wee bit longer, it's good to see the Welsh lad coming on last 15, albeit
he's rapid, by the way.
I like to look at him.
And also as of Laurie, Mr. Podcast Stroke Media Star, decided to get his photo taken in the hotel with Daniels as well. So he's clearly still lurking about it. Also, so when he comes back, he could be a bit of a handful as well. If he can get a bit of a combination going with either Tyrese or Big Hugo, then we've got plenty of options there.
Can I just you mentioned about Daniels, and I'm glad you mentioned about him, because something I've noticed about him when he's been out injured, for someone that's had a really serious injury and is obviously, you almost forget about him, but he's always there. You see when he's on the pitch doing the celebrations, getting the photos, and the likes of Blair and that are out catching all the sort of the moment
content,
and he's always there in the videos and the photos, and he's just smiling. He's so infectious, and I think that's great. I think that's a credit to the squad for the morale around the team, even when times are tough. So I always notice that about him, and again, you could see that he loves it, and that hopefully he gets on the pitch soon and we can see what more he has to offer.
Well, as you were saying, Stephen, I was fortunate enough to bump into him in the hotel. I was actually going to let him walk by me, right? That's a bit of podcasting for him. I was going to let him walk by me, but then he actually stops and recognises me. I remember speaking to him at like Christmas time, and he was talking about, oh, you do the podcast, don't you? Blah, blah. So he actually stopped and then spoke to me on Friday night, which again shows you a measure of the guy. And he was saying that his words were he'd be back in a week. So presumably the now postponed Hibs game was his target. So, and another thing as well, as you said, Martin, he's always in the content, even from way back in January when Neil McCann was appointed, he was always there. But the one thing I will give Gennaro Daniels credit for. And again, maybe I'm looking at this from my own perspective as well, actually. He's always documenting his rehab, and he seems to have taken that very seriously as well. And I mean, come on, I'm sure we all know that coming back from an ACL injury can't be easy, but he seems to have really taken it in his stride, and that attitude will only see him do well, I'm sure.
Yeah, he's a very positive guy, definitely. I agree with that, Laurie, and it's good to see. I don't know, Stephen, if you want to... We're moving on to the second half now.
Yeah, I was just going to say,
get that goal out of the way.
Yeah.
Can we get it as quick as Kilmarnock defended it, and as they came out the second half? It was terrible,
man. Where I was nudging towards is the fact that, albeit we've done all that good work, we get in at half time, it's one each, and we're thinking to ourselves, well, it's a bit of a game, a bit of a rollicking maybe for McCann at half time. Get us reset, get us, told what we should do, where we should go. Obviously, he's just taken Brandon off, so therefore, from my point of view, it's the first tactical switch that was very impressive, because I think we spoke last week, Martin, and Laurie spoke about game within a game, Dell and McCann, the kind of comparison there in terms of how looking at the game and maybe not changing it up, but I think all of the steps that he made as the game went on were very positive from our point of view. So let's quickly stumble on to the stumble that Tish seemed to do in the first 5 minutes of the second half. Again, I hate to sound like a broken record, but that wanting it more just seemed to be there again for the second half whistle goes. And the Ayr United players came out of the traps kind of steaming, and the boy Taylor, you've got to say that's a cracking finish, and I mean, again, unfortunately, from my point of view, and I don't want to highlight players because that's not what we're about on here, but Tish looked very slow and kind of fumbled his lines again, the boy just cracked it, and I think that's one where maybe we could debate whether we thought Big Max was kind of at fault, maybe not at fault. It came pretty quickly at him, but. It was. What was your take on it, Laurie, in terms of the lovely second half start?
Yeah, I mean, I do think maybe Max was potentially at fault albeit for me from a bit of a distance. It looked like he was going to at fault, but it's one of these ones where I think it's just you look at it as you're watching the game and you just think, what the hell have we learnt from the start of this game? Because as much as we had the majority of the possession, credit to Ayr, they didn't let up. Gary Naismith and Brown Ferguson, the assistant, he had them very well drilled. And the guy who scored their second goal, is it Ross Taylor? He had worked with Naismith at Senny before. So if you want a guy that is gonna follow out instructions to the letter as soon as you come out at half time, he's your man. And I tell you what, Ayer's deserved that, and I've spoken to a couple of their supporters who I have to admit were felt very hard done by, and I can see why. I mean, a really poor start, which I'm going to give us a bit of credit as a fan base. I'm so glad that Rugby Park didn't turn when that second one went in. I kind of thought, it turned away a bit, but no, it didn't.
It's a very good point about the crowd, because it could have done. And I thought throughout the whole match, even later on, you were 2-1 down and the crowd's still stuck. And I remember saying to Neil at one point, the crowd need to do something, but I think we'd done enough at that point. I felt as though the players needed to step up. Someone needed to be a hero. Someone needed to do something. And, but going back to the goal, I think, Stephen, you're right. You don't want to single players out. But for me, I'm not buying this whole Tish Bowler's not fit because he missed pre-season. Bloody hell, he's been at the World Cup training every day. You know what I mean? He had a bit of time off and that, but Tish Bowler, played brilliantly. Was superb in keeping us up. I just can't put my finger on it at the minute. What's happened to Tish Bowler? He just seems just doesn't seem switched on at times. Just seems to switch off. And I suppose we've seen that in Tish Bowler in previous spells. We've seen the good and the bad of Tish Bowler, and I think Neil documented it last season when he signed. That are we going to get the Tish Bowler that turns up, or the Tish Bowler that just switches off? And I think this season we've got the Tish Bowler that doesn't seem to be there. But we also know that Tish Bowler is a very good player, so I just think I think he's another one that just needs a bit of confidence. I don't know. I think the booking as well probably didn't help. And you're right in what you say, Stephen. That, and I said this as well. Mark O'Hara coming on totally changed the dynamics of the game. And I like Mark O'Hara, and I know Alan, who I don't know if he's still on now, but if he's listening, he's a big fan of Mark O'Hara. Was singing praises about getting him back in the summer. And for me, he's a good fit for the club. Still got unfinished business, and you could just see when he came on, he just wanted it that bit more than the Tish Bowler. And I'm not saying that Tish Bowler was not trying or anything, but it just seemed on the eye that O'Hara, for me, just did make that difference straight away. I think within the first minute, run into the box with a diving header, which nearly scored from. So he really wanted to get stuck in, and I think O'Hara will be a big player during the course of the season. I don't think he's here to be sitting on the bench all season.
No. Well, I think I would just
qualify
also on you're saying there, Martin, about the yellow card. It was a cheap yellow card, but I've got to say, actually, being as pernickety and fickle as he actually was, I thought the ref actually let quite a bit go at times. I don't actually think there's guys running about me going absolutely mental, but I actually think for everything that was on it, the crowd getting involved and all the rest of it, I think he had actually a decent game.
Wasn't his worst performance,
no,
but I mean,
he's been a lot worse with us, let's face it.
Definitely.
It was a cheap booking, but again, it was right in front of the referee as well, wasn't it? The Bowler, so
it was a
more than anything. It's one of those
booking.
ones that you could argue a wee bit on it, but I don't think it was anything that we need to be overly. I think the ref done all right across the course of the game. In fact, I don't think there was many. I think Larson get booked as well, didn't he? But I don't think there was much else in terms of cards get thrown about. So I think he done okay.
I think Laurie's had a connection problem, so we'll be back with us in a moment.
I think
we'll just continue.
He might have just decided that he was going out there, so he was a bit of buffering, wasn't he? That's because he's no host this week. That's what it is. He's got a wee bit upset.
he's had too much publicity on BBC. That's why.
Yeah, and I think it started. I think it started to change a bit as certainly Tish Bowler, I think, was switching about 69 minutes. Around about that sort of point. And I think that's when the game sort of started to swing a bit in our favour in terms of the change. Kelty and Laurie, I mean, they were pretty impressive. They had a couple of shots, and I think it was a decent save as well with the boy Ross from Kelty.
Laurie had a good shot from outside the box as well.
I think they both had a crack, didn't they? And brought, again, hats off to the Airkeeper, because he played pretty well. Obviously, as the game went on, that maybe ended badly for him, but I thought he'd done all right. But yeah, I think from our point of view, O'Hara is definitely going to make a difference. And as you say, the Welsh lad as well, I think he coming on, it'll be nice to see. He looked okay when he was buzzing around.
I thought he was really lively up top. There was a couple of times where he was running in between two defenders, and you're thinking, bloody hell, some pace he's got on him. And McCann's right, because McCann did say in a Killy Trust meeting, just before the season started, that the boy's rapid, and he was right to what he was saying. Really, really impressed. The second goal that we score. So Laurie's back in the building. How are you? So we're just about to talk about the second goal, Laurie, the equaliser. So Michael Sean and Larson. What a player he's turning out to be, in the attacking sense. Anyway, I mean, defensively, there's questions certainly, but for me, what a player going forward. So comfortable on the ball, and I was so surprised. I think United was spooked by him cutting inside, because they're thinking, he's on his right, he's coming in on his right foot. They're probably thinking left back, but they just let him come through. And credit to Sean and Larson. I mean, what a strike that was! I
don't know about you guys, but it was akin to Big Wilson the night he scored against Dundee. Remember when he just kept running and he scored?
Absolutely.
And that's what I was thinking as soon as I seen it.
Scored against Neil McCann's Dundee. There you go.
Yeah, ironic.
But
you're taking the goal,
honestly, yeah. So in terms of, obviously, the goal itself is brilliant. As well, before we scored that, I was kind of thinking we just need to hit it, almost have like a pot shot, because we were we felt as if we were almost guilty of trying to walk the ball in, and then Michael Schoening Larson just goes, "Screw it, I'm hitting this," and obviously 2 goals in 2 games for him. It's just Ed Martin going forward. He's brilliant. Going back the way he seems about as reliable as my internet connection at the moment. But yeah, just
Get 10 bob in the
honestly.
meter.
The strike though from Mick is the guy that we had to call him seemed brilliant. I mean, out of the blue almost, but it's almost disrespectful to say it's out of the blue because obviously scores a really good goal against Celtic, scored against Hearts last season, and he's a guy who does have an eye for goal. And he's been a really shrewd signing from the recruitment team as well. He's another one you kind of wonder if we'll be able to hold on to him, or if there might be kind of some onlookers there.
Well, we can talk about them briefly as well. So I was just looking at some of the stats about like Laurie and Sean and Larson, so we can chat about them. I mean, let's go to the winner, Stephen.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, there's a few flurries just before that, though, wasn't there? For you? I think
There was.
With actual fact, there was that one
where Taylor, the 85 minutes. He was he looked. Oh man, I thought he was. He shot it just wide. That looked to me that I kind of thought that was going to be it. I thought.
Carbon copy of the second goal they scored, where we lose the ball cheaply and we don't track it back. But you know what, Tom Lowry, for all the good he's done, that was a really bad mistake from him.
Of the game.
And you know what, I'd have been gutted if we'd lost that, obviously, but also I'd been gutted for him because he has played really well and been a big player for us. But then if you switch back to the winner, I remember the ball coming across. And Tom Lowry's ball, the switch ball, is, on the bottom. It's right on Sean and Larson's foot. Good ball into the box, in terms of asking questions. Asking questions. The keeper makes a hash of it. The defender makes a hash of it as well. But then, I said this at the time, and then I think Neil McCann mentioned it afterwards, and he's right in what he says. Nicky Clescenco, who I thought, for me, really struggled to get into the game. I like to see a winger take the man on, get a cross in, and he managed to do it eventually, but he just seemed a bit, he didn't have the confidence to beat his man. He lost the ball a few times, but so pleased for the guy to, because he has showed in glimpses in his games how good he can be. And most players would just smash that low, hard, whatever, on target. But he's got the coolness and the calmness to just flick it up, chip it over, and for me, it was a great moment. Last minute. I mean,
most composed man in Rugby Park.
Just
when you see it back on the telly, I mean, it was just phenomenal.
Brilliant.
And I think McCann actually referenced that in his interview as well, post match, Martin. I think he'd actually said, the composure that he shows, and it's a quality chip. He just literally jinx it, almost Penka style.
Incredible.
It's just brilliant.
Chippy Clescenco.
A haddock thrown in. Somebody battered that one. But I think certainly the keeper and the defender obviously coming together. There clearly was no shout, and the keeper had been brilliant, for keeping it kind of as it was for them. But yeah, the composure and the finish was just brilliant, and that'll do, as you said, Martin. His confidence when he came on. I think he did make a bit of a difference when he came on. But I think he confidence-wise, that's clearly going to put him, through the roof. He seemed to celebrate it, kind of almost mystified as well. It was great to see.
What I liked about him though is why, like we hear all the time, like Danny Armstrong people used to get on his back, but at least he was the only one that kept trying. And Nicky Clescenco, for me, again, he was the type of player that he just kept going, kept losing it, kept going, and you could see his confidence at times, but. I think like that goal will just do him the world of good now. Honestly, like he must have been waking up thinking, "Bloody hell, I've just scored the winner in the last minute of the Ayrshire derby." And like I said, he could go on and do nothing for the rest of his career, but Kilmarnock fans will certainly remember him for what he did that night. And that's what happens in these games. I kept saying to Neil, I said, "Oh, we need someone to be a hero here and step up. Like we need someone like a big player to just, just do something," and that's what it's all about. Moments like that makes the difference. So really, really pleased for him, and the celebrations at the end were great. One fuck all, you never will. sang it around the ground. It was
we
brilliant.
We nearly went the full episode without that being mentioned, but there you are.
Well, it's got to be mentioned. Come on, we can't have a come on for beating it. Right, we kind of have that. But see on the predictions, though, like everyone was predicting it was 2 or 3-0, but I did say we'll go to extra time and win it, and it nearly did. I'm just so glad it didn't go to extra time, because the thought of us going for extra time and not scoring, and then the possibility of penalties was really scaring me, because that was what.
To be fair, Martin, I don't want to take too much away from you. However, as I'm the host tonight, I will. Both Laurie and I were bang on, because we said we were going to win. We clearly had the confidence and the belief, and we done it in 90 minutes as well. So we'll just
absolutely
moving quickly over to you, Laurie, because you had the best view of the goal where your position is. How did you see it?
It was literally just like, as soon as you see the miscommunication between Harry Stone and Kevin Holt, you just kind of, the thing is, you all get that like anticipatory excitement where you go, oh God, he's got to score this. But you're losing your composure whilst you're hoping Nicky keeps his. Because you almost expect a player to blast it. But like, as you're saying, Nicky had the like audacity to, well, A, chip it over, and B, to just as you say, like nobody was on the pitch at that point, almost have that awareness as well as the composure just to do that. I mean, and you quite rightly said, Stephen, that Neil pointed out afterwards. He was praising the composure and and the technical ability of Clescenco. One of the things he said was he's a very like technically gifted player. I mean, we do forget that he is an international for Moldova. Bear in mind, 2 of our 3 goal scorers are international footballers now, and that's something that you can very rarely say. But I just think with Nicky, I'm hoping there's a turning point, because over the last season, it took him a while to get into the team, and then there was rumours he was struggling to settle, and then, to be fair, Neil McCann kind of confirmed those rumours later in the season. And I know at times maybe he struggled a little bit with the language barrier and stuff, but now, hopefully, Nicky can do his talking on the pitch.
Right, well put, Laurie. Very well.
So, Martin, you got some stats for us. So we'll as with about eked most of the Ayr United stuff. Can we get some stats, as you like, a wee start there? The improved players as we look at it. I think we looked at Larson, Laurie, and Nicky as well as being the 3 that kind of stand out.
Nicky for me is one that's a slow burner, and I think we've talked him up about his winner, so that it was more about just talking about him and his confidence. But going to like Tom Lowry and Sean and Larson, obviously we've touched on some of the stuff. So Tom Lowry started 10 games, played 10 games in the league, 8 of them starts since that red card. So he started the Motherwell game where he got red carded, and then he didn't play for 2 months. He started the game against Hearts after the Falkirk defeat. So in those 10 games, we've won 6, drawn 1, lost 3. He's scored 1 and he's had 4 assists. So even just I mean, he's good on the eye, but even the stats back it up about, he's involved in his goal involvement is there. In terms of his passes as well, he's had 128 touches of the ball this season in the 2 league games, 88% success rate, 33% success in crosses. Some of his crosses he was putting in when he was getting the ball out wide was brilliant. Obviously, there's players not getting on the end of it. When you compare it to, say, Brandon's crossing, which was very poor, but his crossing's pretty decent as well. 67% successful dribbles as well. He seems to have the whole package. There was one instance in the second half where there was 2 players on him, and he was just able to read the game, and it was something so simple, so effective, because he turned both of them, took both players out of the game, and then switches it to the other side. And for me, that he's just got that bit more composure. Again, a player that's built confidence under McCann. Is playing. He seems to be like the main player. McCann's like said, go and do what just do what you're good at. He's good on the ball. He's not giving the ball away much. And he's got a bit of everything about him, and he's now chipping in with goals and assists. So for me, really big player, really stand-up player, and he's only going to get better for me, and I really do enjoy watching him. So yeah, and he's also, for a very small player, he gets stuck in as well. 63% duels won as well. Really, really good. I don't know if you two want to quickly chip in on Tom Laurie and what your thoughts are.
Laurie, on you go.
Yeah, I just think in your stats there have backed up. He's someone who I had high hopes for when we signed him last season when the golf brought him in. I mean, he does have the Mini Esther nickname for a reason, but I think he's someone who was maybe utilised not quite in the right way previously, and then obviously got sent off in the Motherwell game, which was not great. But then he's really kicked on. He's the sort of midfielder who's hard to get your hands on. He's one who's just technically gifted, but keeps it simple where needed as well. And I know we were saying earlier on that we've not seen Aaron Tishbola at his best yet this season, but he seems to complement Tish really well when they're on form. It just seems to really work well together, almost in the same sort of way that not in terms of style at all, totally different players. The same way Power and Dicker seems like an immovable midfield at times, even though maybe saying the Alessio season El McCreaney, for example, tried, whereas now it appears to be kind of Laurie and Tishbola, although Mark O'Hara, as we said earlier on the show, may have something to say about that, but Tom Laurie can't really go anywhere anytime soon. And I'll tell you something, he was really unlucky, Laurie, not to score when Harry Stone, Ayr goalkeeper, pulled off a fantastic save, I don't know, maybe 70 odd minutes, and Tom Laurie was a cracker of a goal there.
Yeah, Matt and I discussed that when you were off buffering there, sort of thing. I think when O'Hara came on, the game changed in our favour in reality, and that shot I don't think was that far after O'Hara had came on. So yeah, as you say, Laurie well improved and well deserved the man of the match for me.
It's interesting because he seems to, when he's playing with someone who's on their game, it allows him to play better. I thought Tom Laurie was really good when Tishbola was on his game last season. And it seems to be, like you said, as soon as Mark Herrera comes in, he just seems to be able to have that bit more confidence. But he works back, he tracks back, he doesn't shy away from that side of his game, but he's also box to box, and he's not afraid to have a shot. How many times have you seen players that are just bloody shoot, you know what I mean? But he seems to come in at the right time. I mean, he scored obviously a goal in the big game that kept us up, Dundee in the penultimate home game. Very, very good that night. In the last three games, this season, so obviously the St Johnstone game, Celtic game, and then the Ayr game, he's got an assist in every game. He's there, he's creating things, he's making things happen. And for me, he can only get better in that role. So really, really, really pleased to see him develop, and I'm looking forward to seeing him play during the course of this season, and also being sort of interested in the stats side of things, being inclined to see how that improves as well compared to maybe other midfielders in the league as well. If anyone is listening, wants to sort of chip in on Tom Laurie, once they've listened to this, or if they're listening to this now, give us a shout. The other guy, obviously we talked about already, Sean Larson. As we've mentioned, defensively the stats aren't there, but going forward, I mean, I can't remember the last time I've seen a fullback as good as him at Kilmarnock going forward. And I suppose, I'm just trying to think. Can you think of anyone, Stephen, in terms of a left back or a right back that's very productive going forward? He's got, in this 26 games, he's got 4 goals, 1 assist.
Yeah, no, you tend to kind of think more players that are good at sort of one or the other in reality.
Sometimes
can I think who we've had that's
the only one that came to my mind, but it's maybe a little bit pushing it. Stephen O'Donnell came to mind. Obviously got a couple of goals against Rangers, but generally speaking, as you say, we don't tend to have good attacking fullback at all. Because I mean, Stephen O'Donnell certainly had deficiencies as well, as I'm sure Motherwell fans will tell you.
Yeah, he's Sean Larson is so comfortable on the ball. So I was looking at some of the attacking stats more than the defensive ones, because they're nothing to shout about. And I think we we can see that. And you know what? That's just a side of his game that needs to be improved. But part of it is probably because of the way McCann plays as well. He likes his fullbacks to be attacking. Unfortunately, Jamie Brandon is struggling both ends. But we've got this new German coming in, so maybe there was talk of Sean and Larson playing on the right and the new boy playing at the left.
But again, whereas not having a game, Martin, that's going to be something that'd be good as well, because it looks as if he's not far away anyway. So it might well be that we'll get to see him next time out, effectively. But along with Daniels might be in the running as well. So,
but he's comfortable. So I was looking at his passing was 81% pass success rate. Seems comfortable on the ball passing it, and also his shooting as well. So, you know, you talk about the way he comes in, he's always inclined to have a shot. Again, like Laurie, how many times are we missing players that just have a pot on goal when you cut in? And he's good at doing it. So in the league, he's had 13 shots on goal across this season and last season, 71% shot accuracy on goal, 23% have resulted in the goals. So that Dundee one, I mean, the goal he scored on Friday night was pretty much evident of the one that was against Dundee in the 2-2 draw. Just before the post split, where he cut inside and hit it from outside the box. You know, he's just got that ability, and it doesn't matter whether he's on the left or the right, he'll cut in on either foot. He's so comfortable at doing it, and he's so dangerous, like, to play against. He's got a bit of speed as well. So for me, it's so exciting to watch going forward. But when you're defending it, you know, that's where it is a bit of a worry. But I mean, Stephen, Laurie, you know, great to watch, isn't he, going forward?
Yeah, briefly tipping on the defensive side. I know I want to end off on a negative in terms of the air game, but you know, we're here for the fans as well. But certainly seemed to be, and I know Laurie spoke about it when he was on his on BBC as well. It seemed to be that Neil got a wee bit prickly when it came to his post-match interview after. As we've obviously alluded to, you know, it seems basic defending, the mistakes, the diamond formation, and I don't think Jonathan Sutherland is any Jeremy Paxman to any stretch of imagination. So I think he was fairly well entitled, like some Kilmarnock fans probably asking as well. You know, we're leaking goals. You know, so I don't know how he went round about the 11 goals in 3 games, whatever, and gave him the actual factual stats, and I felt it was a bit abrupt and borderline rude with Jonathan, because I don't think that, looking at the game as a whole, that you know, it was quite maybe as Neil had painted it. I'm not quite having the, you know, we wanted it and all of this kind of thing. But so some fans, I know I've certainly had some texts and WhatsApp and whatever saying, "Oh, you got out of jail," you know, neutrals that have maybe watched it kind of thing. You know, he's won it, but you know, I just think there's a fine line, and Kenny Shields tread that fine line where pressmen knew how to just have a wee poke at him, and it would kind of go off a bit. I'm not suggesting that that's where we're going at the minute, but I think we need to just be a bit careful that sometimes, you know, criticism is, you know, you get paying customers that you know, are season ticket holders, etc., having a watch at that, and you are concerned. You're sitting there thinking, have we not learned, like you said, Martin, as we come out for the second half? You know, 5 minutes gone and we've made the same mistakes that we made in the first 5 minutes. You know, beggars belief. But you know, what was your take, Laurie? We heard a bit of your take, obviously, in the BBC on McCann's comments.
Yeah, I think, like, it's an interesting one, because I quite agree on the surface, at least with what you say, Stephen. It comes across a wee bit rude, but then part of me says, is he almost responding in that way because there's almost an element of comfort there, because again, he knows these guys, he knows whatever. Is he almost responding that way, not as a mate, but because he knows him and has that bit of familiarity there? Because even when I was on the BBC, it was something that Kenny McIntyre brought up of, like, we know Neil McCann, we know Billy Dodds, we know he's a passionate guy, and he kind of stuck up for him a little bit. But then, but Tom English made a very valid point live on the Beeb, whereby he basically said, he asked Kenny whether that was right at the start of the interview, if that was Jonathan's first question, which, if it was, you can then say his McCann got a point. But it was actually in the middle of the interview and it just been clipped up. And like, journalistically, Jonathan Sutherland has every right to go and ask Neil McCann that question, especially when he was, you know, prepared with his stats. If Jonathan got the stats wrong, maybe you could argue again, but he didn't. And at the end of the day, Neil McCann And I generally quite like the way he handles the media, but he has to kind of stand up to that one, because a fact's a fact, and a reporter's only asking a question. I mean, it doesn't need, oh, Jonathan, are you negative all the time? You know, it was a wee bit childish, was it not?
Yeah.
I
Your
think.
take, Martin?
Yeah. I like it in a way. I like the fact he's not. He says it as it is. He's not afraid to mince his words. But I do agree that there has got to be a bit of respect as well for the person doing the job. But there's nothing wrong with that, showing that passion. It's straight after an Ayrshire derby where you've got 11,300 in. You've just won it in the last minute. He knows himself he was under pressure, because if he'd lost that game, then the fans would let him know. So I think there was a bit of pressure on him straight after it, maybe if he was asked that question the next day. So I think sometimes it's about, having that mic shoved in front of you straight after a game when there's high pressure. I think sometimes you can react the wrong way. So I get both sides of it, is what I'm saying. I think you're right. You've got to have that respect there. But McCann's always been that sort of character, and I agree with what Laurie says, that having those people that he knows really well. I think that's a very fair comment there as well. So before we move on to the ladies, and I know Stephen, you'll carry on with that, I just want to jump into a couple of comments here. So Alan mentioned on there, so Larson, Brandon and Thompson were all signed by the Goff. They aren't good defensively, but going forward, that's because they were signed as wing backs. You know what? It's a fair comment. Like, I think Larson's very good at it. Thompson, to his credit, right? I'm gonna stick my neck out there and say Thompson, I would have been happy to see him stay. I don't think he was the worst. He just wasn't good defensively, but neither's Larson, and he's not getting any stick for it. I think it's because his productivity in the attacking areas overlooks that.
A slight retort on the Goth as well. He's one of the managers in recent times that's made us a wee bit of money as well, to be fair.
Yeah.
So exactly. We look at Dakars, Thompson, So
and in fairness to the Goff, he brought in Sam Morrow as the head of recruitment, who, again, to be fair, as you say, has played a part in making that money. I think it was a former teammate of his at Ross County.
Aye. And just before we jump on as well, Neil's obviously popped in again there. To play 4-1-2-1-2, so this diamond, you need a reliable defensive midfielder in front of the back four. Tishbola appeared to be that last season, but started very poorly, leaving the back totally exposed. Again, spot on. Mark O'Hara for me, that's the man. Mark O'Hara for me has to. See, if I was picking that team right now and going on the former players, regardless of how good Tishbola's been, Mark O'Hara is the player to sit there, pick up, read the lines, and he's the perfect man for that job for me. What's your thoughts on that, Stephen? Would you agree on that?
Yeah, no, I definitely think. I mean, might well even be a case that Tish gets a wee bit of a rest. From my point of view, I think that might well be taken out of the firing line as such sort of thing, because you don't really want the crowd to turn too much, but you want the best for the team, and I think O'Hara definitely gives us, as I say, I mean, there's a couple of positions he can play, but certainly I think he would command a bit of respect in the middle there as well, sort of thing, and he's very vocal as well. When you can see when he comes on, it's almost like another captain effectively in the position where you potentially want it. But again, you can play him. I think you can play him at right back, you can play him in the centre mid. He's a very versatile player. He's no came here, as you said as well, Martin. He's no came here to sit on the bench, not at this stage in his career. So, and I think he feels as though he probably owes a wee bit back to Kelly, having knocked him back this when he came back up the road first time, and up in Motherwell and whatever, So, I think Tish probably a wee bit of a rest might not be a bad thing.
Good shout.
It's one of those. It's whether he's going to be, how dogmatic he's going to be with this formation still, as to whether he's going to actually start to think about tinkering a wee bit. Might well be, as we've said before as well, the window's open still, so therefore maybe we're still looking at that big ugly centre half that we all want to see. I'm not talking about Kirk, and have the presence there and the experience to be vocal. But I certainly think there's probably a tweaking involved. It'll just depend. Before we tip on to ladies, I was going to do that last, Martin. So let's just gather our thoughts then on the cup draw today. We obviously are hoping that Brad and Lewis come back and give us an own goal for Sorrows. But what's your initial thoughts, Laurie, on the draw?
I think it's not too bad at all. Of course, we have had previous cup drama against the Dons sometimes not go away. But I think there are some positives to take from this one. Well, of course, the home tie once again, which you can't complain about. And of course, I think Aberdeen at the minute are very tough to call. They're very inconsistent. Stephen Robinson hasn't quite got that kind of blend right yet. It doesn't seem like, yes, they beat Dundee yesterday, but there's nothing to say we can't go and get the better of Aberdeen. Nothing at all. I mean, you've got to think it was Aberdeen that started off the kind of decent run under Neil, last season that kept us up. It was they were the first team we beat after the big winners run. I mean, I was a little bit gutted that we didn't get Ross County, but I mean, I tell you what, Ross County at home was what I wanted. Obviously, to be fair, not legislating for the cup shock that happened at Oakville View. To be fair, did not see that coming. Well, that's before the Motherwell team came out, but aye. But I tell you what, it's not too bad, and I think at the end of the day, 1 win away from Hampden, and we're in with a decent shot.
Yeah, well said. I think well put. Martin, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree with Laurie. Home tie. That's what I think most fans would have wanted. We'll save the Goff for the semi-final once we beat Aberdeen, and then we could beat the Goff and tell him what we think of him at Hampden. So we'll save ourselves for that. But yeah, no, I'm absolutely delighted. Really, home tie. I mean, you want to avoid Rangers or Celtic. Let's face it. And the fact is, the Brucey bonus of getting a home tie and it's Aberdeen. They play each other in the quarterfinal, which means it gives us a bigger chance of doing even better in the competition the further we get if we do so. I honestly think that Aberdeen under Stephen Robinson, he's still trying to, like you say, Laurie, work out what's going on with his team. But Stephen Robinson, for me, Stephen Robinson, we know how his teams play. Yeah, McCann should be able to work that out regardless of who's playing in the Aberdeen team. And I fancy us to, I really do fancy us to give them a good go. And we've got a good chance of getting to Hampden. So yeah, really pleased and looking forward to it.
Good thing we've got also is that we actually play them the week before, ironically, in the league. So at home, so that's at least that gets us maybe get a wee look at them a bit up close as well. But yeah, I personally think it was a decent draw. Apart from Stenhouse Muir, I would have quite liked that as well after seeing the shock of that coming out. But that would have been good as well. But
they're not a bad side, I think they've.
Marvin Bartley's done all right, hasn't he?
Yeah,
I think the jury was out on him, wasn't it, when he had this Queen of the South, and he was up at Livingston obviously as well. But he seems to have. I think the groundwork certainly for previous manager who obviously met the better side of Ayrshire on Friday night. He's done a lot of the good groundwork there, in fairness. So Marvin's maybe discrediting him slightly, but he's picked up in a lot of, because I think as we've seen with United, they know what they're doing. They're well drilled in the positions, and I think that's probably down to the previous manager's leadership. But not taking anything away from Marvin.
Bring on the Goff. Bring on the Goff.
As you say, Martin, we'll wait till we've got the sheep out of the way, and then we'll get on to the Goff. Having closed off, we shall go into the women, who had a fantastic 5-star victory today. So they were away, ironically, at Clydebank to play Renfrew. It's just the way these things happen. A bit like us, we're not quite playing at the Bowie Park yet, but yeah, so fantastic. The girls were up 1-0 because Cara Gray got the first one, first half, so she got on the score sheet. She actually, ironically, went off, but the substitute that came on for her, Erin O'Brien, decided she would get a double just to let maybe Mr. Chapman remind that she's got a few goals in her. Another double for brilliant Sky Stout, who again, she went off later on in the game as well, but fantastic double for her. So yeah, I mean, really, really good victory, solid victory. 5 goals and just a 1 against. So puts on top of the league, which is fantastic for the girls. Also a quick nod and shout out to previous friend, and I'm sure still friend of the pod, Abby Robinson, getting a fantastic move to Partick Thistle. She played today as well. They got a credible draw, 1 each. She went off in 80 minutes, so didn't quite get a goal. She was quite close on an occasion, just past the post, I believe. But well done to Abby, and fantastic. I'm sure she'll tear up that top flight. And you know, really, really sad for us to lose her after 12 years of fantastic service. And I don't know if anybody had a look on the X, but she had a very classy closing statement for thanking our previous coaches and managers. So well done, Abby. Complete respect for us, and I hope she goes on to do some great things. Obviously, the Gary Holt connection there was probably tipping in the favour. The fact that he obviously knows and has watched her at close quarters. But yeah, fantastic for her to get the move up, and only the best wishes for her moving forward. So yeah, hopefully she's tuning in, and she might give me a message just to say thanks for that. But maybe not. Maybe I'm bigging myself up. So yeah, fantastic for the girls, and let's hope they move forward as the league goes on. But I mean, obviously it was the opener today, but there's some of the other kind of score lines that they had in the division. Queen's Park 1-2-1 against Hamilton Accies. Cairn get beat from Boroughmuir Thistle, who are behind us, and they were challenging us last year. They won 4-1. Dundee United Falkirk was a 2-2 draw, and St Johnstone beat Livingston 3-1. So yeah, kind of all to play for at the minute. But yeah, sitting top of the league, which is where we want to be. And let's hope this season that we get another push. No pressure, Mr. Chapman, but yeah, we're up there at the minute. So unless you've closing thoughts, guys, I think that's about us done. If anything else to add.
I've got one shout out for someone. I think you'd have seen I posted it up earlier. So a big shout out to Lorna Warnock, who put a post up of her boy, with like happy tears, like obviously in the drama of the last sort of few minutes of the game. I think it was when actually the second goal went in. You know, she put up saying about crying as Killy scored the second goal to equalise, the passion and love he has for his team, and getting to watch it is nothing short of special. Even though it's not the same team as me, we will always make sure he watches his team. Fantastic parenting there. You know, we go on about like hear about kids follow their parents and all that, but that's brilliant parenting for me. You know, wants to watch his local team, probably goes to school with all, you know, friends and that support Kilmarnock. Could easily go and follow whoever she supports. I think she's a Rangers fan, but no, you know, credit to it, and that's great. So I really liked that when I seen that, and I really wanted to share that. So I really just wanted to give her a shout out as well there.
Yeah. And seriously, Ollie, some of us get lifted over the gate back in the days when we had an old stadium. But anyway, I'm not banging on about that. But yeah, you've got to follow your home team. But yeah, I've seen the wee man's post. It was pretty impressive as well. I think it was a bit of tears around there anyway. But fantastic for him to witness, you know. And as we said at the beginning of the show as well, fantastic to see Rugby Park bouncing, the disco lights, the atmosphere, and hats off to Ayr United. They did add to the atmosphere in terms of, you know, coming in numbers. Questions for the dark side Ayrshire as to where they are every other Saturday, but that's for them to have a look at. But it was good that they get a tour around a proper stadium, and they can go back, and we'll see them again in another 4 years, if they feel they might be able to wriggle into the cup again. Thoughts for you, Laurie, on the partisan ending?
Yeah, very, very, very much right behind it, because of course there is only one team in Ayrshire, and of course Ayr United don't exactly know what a trophy is. I mean, so
Ayrshire Cup doesn't count.
Doesn't count, and to be fair, who won the last one? So there you go. No, but absolutely, and I just said about Ayr United and their numbers, of course, 300,000 were there, which I do know is about double their usual home gate. So it does make you kind of question, because like ourselves, they probably had a decent catchment for fans, but who wants to go to Somerset Park when you can just go a short distance to a real football stadium, real football team, and much nicer colours as well?
And so see all of us. On that happy note, as we always say every week,